welcome back to our channel. It's Miriam with Royal Pools and Spas. In today's video, we're going to be talking about test strips, how to test your water at home, and how to do it properly. So I have a bunch of different test strips here in front of me. The one thing that you're going to want to start out with for success is making sure that your test strips will test for the right sanitizer in your pool or your spa. So in our spa that's in our store, we use bromine. So for that, I'm going to be using these Sorona test strips here. These specific ones will test for chlorine or bromine, so whether you're using one or the other, you can use these test strips. A lot of our customers on the Frog at Ease system, you'll want to use those test strips. So make sure that you're using the right ones. Chlorine, bromine free, hydrogen peroxide, Sorona Simply, you'll want to use those specific strips. Each of these is going to test for alkalinity, pH, and calcium, but you'll want to make sure that you're also testing your sanitizer. The next thing that you'll want to look at is the expiration date on your test strips. Mine are good until 10 of 26. Check your bottles at home. Make sure you're not using expired test strips. If you are certainly not going to get an accurate result. So definitely go ahead and check that before you start using them. If you saw our last video, I showed you how to properly get a sample from your hot tub. If you are testing a hot tub or a pool, you're going to want to do this in the same way. When you shop at our stores, we'll give you a bottle like this to test your water in, but you can use any sort of water bottle. Go 18 inches into your water, about elbow deep, and get that sample, and then dip your test strip in that bottle there. A lot of the time we hear customers are dipping test strips directly into the tub or directly into the pool. And when you're dealing with, 300 gallons of water, 10,000 gallons of water, things like that, you're not going to get an accurate reading by just dipping the strip into the top of the water, because the strip is going to read the first drop of water that it touches. So that's definitely a key component when it comes to testing your water at home when you are in between getting professional water tests. The next thing that I recommend doing is completely setting yourself up for success. So what I mean by that is, have your sample ready to go. Make sure your test strips are viable and get yourself prepared, because you're only going to have about 10 seconds to read the results once you dip the strip. So get yourself familiar with the ranges that are on the bottles here. The first one at the top is going to be the chlorine or the bromine. Where it says okay here is where you're going to want to be making sure that your color matches, right? So we have alkalinity next, then pH, and then calcium. So get yourself familiar with what that looks like, what colors you're looking out for. That way you're not, fumbling around and wasting test strips or not getting an accurate result. So I've got my test strip here, I've got my bottle. I'm going to go ahead and dip that in. I'm going to try to hold it up so that you guys can see this along with me. So, alright, starting at the top with our bromine, you can clearly see that there's almost no bromine because we should be some sort of lavender color here, and we are basically showing nothing. So that is certainly something that we're going to need to address. The next thing is going to be our alkalinity. When it comes to looking at the colors, I can see that it's not quite in range. It's not quite at a 40, so I'm going to assume it's somewhere between a 40 and an 80. So either way, that is low and would need adjusting. Next thing is going to be our pH. This one I think is the hardest one to read. It certainly doesn't look like it's okay. It looks almost like it's too high. So that might be something that we'll need to adjust once we adjust for the alkalinity, because we know that those are related. And then our calcium. Our calcium looks to be within range, so that is great news. We're doing something right. Once you get your calcium in range, it should hold unless you're losing dramatic amounts of water. So that one is typically the easiest to get right consistently. So now that I have my results, right, we know that we're going to adjust alkalinity first. We know that alkalinity and pH have a relationship where when you affect one, you affect the other. And then we're going to go ahead, since we don't need to add any calcium today, we would then address the sanitizer level in our tub. When you are adding chemicals at home, because you're only getting an idea of what's going on, right? We're not getting exact numbers like you would with our water care system here. you're going to want to add less than what you might think each time. So if you're thinking, you know, my alkalinity could be between 40 and 80, right? I might assume that it's around a 60. So I'm only going to add half of what I think I might need based on the gallon size in my tub. So if I, you know, want to add about an ounce of alkalinity increaser, if you're using the Sorona products, that will be the spot up. I'm going to do half an ounce. Then I'm going to let it run and sit in the system for an hour. Then I'm going to grab another sample and test it again to see if we got closer. I can always add more. It's a lot harder to take away if we go over. So that's it for today's video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave anything down in the comments below, and be on the lookout for some of our new videos coming out soon. It was great to see you guys again today. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.